Alexander Dyer. I just recently graduated from Portland State with my undergrad, and I'll actually be attending University of Missouri, Kansas City for my master's. And I'll be playing movements 1 and 5 of Reflections on the Nature of Water.
fantastic. Love this piece. Oh my gosh, right? And it's just like so full of emotion. So Reflections on the Nature of Water is it's a series of 8 movements, right? 6, sorry. I added 2 for fun. No, yeah, 6 movements, each kind of illustrating a personality or a quality or a character of water. And so that first movement is called Crystalline, and I think that's evoking kind of that icicle nature of water. The 5th movement is called Profound, which is a whole other take on water, just whatever that might mean to you, whether it's the depths of the ocean or something like that. And I just love that task as a performer of taking this music, but this music that's really clearly illustrating something, and having that in our hands. Maybe we'll start with the first movement just to take a look at it, because I like to make the analogy when performing a piece, any piece really. I like to think almost like I'm delivering a speech sometimes. And it's not that I'm trying to tell a story so much as I'm trying to convey a feeling. But that's something we do with words sometimes. And think about all the different devices we use when we speak to give the feeling of progression and maintain interest. And there's so much detail in this score. If you all, maybe we can pass some of it around a little bit, this first movement. Every note you play has a dynamic on it that it's different than the previous one, that it's just a ton of information to sift through, and you've done all that great work. But the goal is for each of those dynamic specifications to actually give us this feeling of forward motion and intention. So could we even, just for fun, play that very first collection of notes? Yeah. Bucket to bucket. Don't you love it? Yeah. It's like, instantly it's just like, what's that? Oh, and you can just listen to the resonance in the room. That's just, let's do it one more time. Everybody really enjoy this. And then our answer. Yes. Next one. Yes, exactly. So we kind of get this descending thing, this little ascending thing, and then this collection of other descending gestures. This is actually sounding wonderful. And feel that little bit of tension in the silences between things, and that want from everyone in the room of like, what's going to happen next, and let that propel you forward. I'll let you keep going this time. That's sounding beautiful. One more time. When you played just the first gesture, it was marvelous. So sometimes we get caught up as performers of knowing, oh, I'm about to do the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Like the first time when I didn't even tell you were going to go on, I just let you play those first notes. I always try to find that feeling when I'm playing. Like, who cares that there's 80 more minutes of music coming? I'm just going to play this note and then decide because it's up to you when you go on and if you go on. You can still decide, just put the mouth down and say thank you. That was enough. So enjoy that feeling.
Okay. Make sure you hear that first gesture before you play it. Take an extra 2 seconds to really hear the sound you want to make.
Excellent, exactly. And forward motion can mean a lot of different things. Like there's forward motion like in trap, and then there's forward motion like in crystalline. But I still want to feel some pull, some momentum to the phrase. And again, it's not going to be the same momentum we get but like whatever that means to you of just like that inevitability of where we just arrived, right? That's kind of that first phrase descends down into this half step, which I love the way you played that in the run through. Just finding that hum of resonance in the instrument where we almost don't even hear articulation, we just hear sustain, which is a tricky thing to do on a percussion instrument where you're hitting the thing, you know? But with time and practice and delicate touch, you can actually create this feeling of just warm resonance.
Yeah.
So
Jonny, I wonder, so Johnny's talking about this direction leading us to that tremolo. What are the musical tools that you have available to achieve that? What can you manipulate?
Kind of like phrasing the bigger beats, like the ones that are like
The main notes.
Yeah, the main notes.
Totally, and we do have a dynamic shape. Like in this case, in those last three, I think we go down, right, over them. Nice, so we can adjust the dynamics. What else?
Also the speed of all the grace notes.
Nice. What's written in the score in terms of the speed of all the grace notes?
I believe it says to play them all as fastly as possible.
Good. What does that mean to you?
I think that means playing it as fastly, but also like musically, like as long as you're like within the realm of fast, I think that's fast enough as long as getting the musical character out of the notes.
Yeah, like it's not, I would interpret it not as fast as possible.
snare drum flam.
Right. No, as fast as desirable, right? Like as fast as sounds good to you. Right now, I feel that the rhythm of the grace notes is a musical attribute that you're not using enough.
Okay.
Generally speaking, all of the grace notes are about the same speed, and generally speaking, I think all of them are too fast.
Okay.
They have a little bit of a frantic energy to them. And at least my conception of this piece, it does have these bursts of energy, but they're obviously nothing like the bursts of energy in Trap, but nothing remotely like that. They're not even anything like the bursts of energy in the fifth movement or in the fast movements of this piece. They're quite tame. And so I think you could, especially, one thing that might help us lead into really the beginning of this piece when we start getting that tremolo is to just ease up on that speed. Just to help really move us into that section. I know it's hard because it does say in the score as fast as possible. It definitely does. And they're not written as rhythms, right? Another composer could have written septuplets and then sextet, like to really clearly show you when they should be fast or slow. But anyway, I just wanted to say that I think that is a part of your playing that doesn't feel like it's being utilized as much as it could be.
Okay.
Yeah? Can we try this whole first section again and just try some stuff? It's not going to be perfect the first time you do it, that's fine. But see if you can put your ear on the speed of those grace notes.
Okay.
Good. Nice experiments. What else can you manipulate in here? Something else with rhythm, but not the speed of the grace notes.
The exact spacing between each grouping.
Good. How do you, obviously they are rhythmically notated and there's a metronome marking, so that's one thing. But I think from listening to you play that you know where those are supposed to go. So how do you think about the connections between these notes? What are you trying to achieve in those spaces?
Yeah, I'm trying to make the connections between the bigger notes, like the main notes, to like be more audible. So like the grouping where it has like the G, which is the louder one in that grouping, I try and make the spacing to that note seem closer than it is to the other ones. So even though like it's written specifically out, I'm trying to use a little bit of liberty to like highlight each individual like icicle.
Good. We're going to try it one more time, and I want you to listen to your dynamic shape from gesture to gesture and think about connecting them. So for instance, if we have one that's mezzo piano and the next one is piano, making sure that it sounds like it feels like you're sustaining this chord even though you're not, but in your ear you have to feel like you just pressed an organ pedal or something like that and it's holding and then resolving on the softer note, or if it's getting louder, that it's actually crescendoing and building energy. Let's see if we can do that with our dynamics, but let's also see if we can do it with the physicality that you're using to approach the instrument. Right now, you play a thing, and then you get ready for the next thing. And that causes all of us to watch you play a thing, and then check our watch and get ready for the next thing. You need to hold our intensity, our attention in between those things, and you can do that by using stillness or movement in your physicality as you play. So, la ba da 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 da. Boom. Move in the way you want the next note to sound. Right now, your movements are not connected to the sound you want to make. The sound is beautiful, and if I close my eyes, it works, but I'm not going to close my eyes because it's a live performance. So make sure that every movement you make, this is so hard on a percussion instrument that doesn't ring, but make sure that you have to trick us into thinking that this is a vibraphone, that it is actually ringing a lot more than it actually is.
Okay.
Try it?
Yeah.
To Johnny's point of like feeling like you're giving a speech or telling a story, that to me has a lot more character, a lot more variance in what you're doing in it, and it's just a lot more, it's more enjoyable to listen to, and it also helps us track what's going on in the piece. This is a beautiful piece, but it's an abstract piece. And I think you need to work really hard to dictate to us what the form is. It's one of the reasons I think the dynamics really help. Every time you play that first gesture in the piece, it's always at the same 3 Ps, I think, right? And so if you can dictate very clearly the differences in these, you can show people, we're on this one, and then we're on this one. Then we went back to this one, and now we're on a new one. You can help sort of lead us through this unfamiliar harmonic place.
One of the other challenges that I've always found in this piece is dealing with the different registers across the instrument and the extreme different amounts of resonance that there are in the different registers, particularly on the marimba. I'm sure as you heard, that first gesture at the very top, there's very little resonance there. But as soon as you get down to those low notes, they're really warm and resonant and sort of like liquid like that. I've always found that challenging because it's not always every time where when I get to the low end of the marimba, I want the sound to open up and be resonant. It's like not always that way. Like even sometimes in the very first bar, boom, it's like, actually we drop down an octave. It's so easy for that to just like be very full and resonant, but I want that to actually be a little bit more of a response, like a very sort of intimate, shy response to that first opening gesture. And then we move on forward from there. So I think managing those resonance, those difference in resonance across the register and the instrument is also part of the challenge.
That's a great point. We're so used to that as marimba players. That's just in your ear. That difference in resonance for you is just a part of going down the instrument. But actually, it's really important to consider. It's a really big aspect of that first measure of the piece. I wonder if it's worth just putting your ears on that one moment here, just the very first measure.
Yeah.
Good. Think about the prep you're giving yourself before blum. Tell me what kind of sound, like what image of water is blum?
I view that as like a water droplet falling
Great.
onto the ground. Yeah.
And what happens when a water droplet is like, let's say it's on an icicle or something and it's going to drop down? What happens if you're looking at that water droplet? Is there a rhythmic motion before the water droplet falls? Or over 10 minutes does it sort of seep little by little until finally gravity makes it fall?
It seeps down until it falls.
Totally.
Yeah.
So let's not have a rhythmic motion. So again, embody the sound you want to make with everything you're doing, everything about what you're doing.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's try an extreme example. Try like da-da-da-da-da-da. Boom. So no break in your movement at all from the gesture to the next one. Good, but no break. That time, yeah, you got it. You got it. Interesting. I know it feels weird if you haven't done it before, but that might help you figure out how long that space is supposed to be, like how it feels to move from here to here. And look, you should not do a physical motion because I told you to in a class. That is a surefire way to make it look contrived and not you. I'm just giving you an example of something that you might try, but you have to find an organic way to do it in your own playing.
But in that run through you did a minute or two ago, when you really did think about your motion between things, that was the most fluid, continuous opening phrase I heard yet. That was really, like, the mind and body are connected, I think, you know? Like, I think that when your physical approach is deeply connected and mirroring your mental interpretation concept of what you want, I think, of course, it's going to sound a little better. So let that tool be in your bag of tricks as well.
Yeah.
Let's spend a few minutes on the
five.
fifth move. Before we get there, I just want to, here, do you mind if I just try something real quick? So there are a lot of hard notes in this piece, but a couple of them that you missed are not hard notes. And I want to make sure that you have permission to do whatever you need to do to get these melody notes. We're in like a very resonant, beautiful room. If you take these little breaks in between the roll, I don't know, it sounds pretty continuous, right? It sounds continuous to me. Like you don't hear that break at all.
No, you have so much more freedom.
Totally.
in the room.
And it's hard to jump out there. A, you might miss a note, but B, that sound I just made it's like a cymbal crash in the wrong piece. Like it's just not the right sound.
What you want is a second person to come in.
Exactly. That's how I used to practice this. Just make that melody exactly the way, and then figure out a way to get that sound while you're also holding this tremolo. So I think this is actually related to the fifth movement as well, because there are moments where I think you can feel good about taking a little bit more time through things. Like you did a wonderful job with those waterfalls with all the tremolos going down, which is like the hardest thing in the entire piece. I actually feel like sometimes you're going too fast. Okay. Like you are changing chords so rapidly that someone who knows the piece really well, I don't actually understand all the harmonic changes. Okay, but let's talk about a couple things in the fifth movement. I want you to be aware of how the choices you make in terms of sticking influence the sound and the phrasing that you're playing with. For instance, you have some choices of how to execute these. So the way this works, you're holding like a fifth here. You just do the first one. And then you have to fade in and out this other fifth. So how does that sound? It's like you're looking at a glacier or something, and then just off in the distance, something else pops out and goes away. And there's a few different ways to do that. So one way is doing what we call one-handed rolls, where literally one hand is doing one fifth, and then the other hand comes in. And can you just demonstrate the other way of doing it? Totally. Both of those are beautiful. One is not better than the other, but they are different. They sound different. Now, because of the register of a lot of these rolls, you have to do option B for most of the piece. Yeah. There's that one right in the beginning, and it comes back later where you can do option A. But they have very different sounds. And again, this is not a right or wrong. We are in the land of subjectivity here. But to me, when I listened to it, I heard one version of it, and then I heard a different version, and I wondered why. Like, I wondered why we were looking for a different sound in that gesture, where I think my interpretation of the piece is that these are all the same. What's changing are the harmonies, but the way that we're hearing them is the same. So I wonder about how you decided to do the one-handed roll.
Yeah, in general, I tried to keep all the same ones be either one-handed rolls, and then it was the one at the end when I actually started doing that, I thought it matched the texture of the other rolls better to keep it all the same kind.
Hold on, just to pause you, that's a good point, that just a one-handed roll and a hand-to-hand roll just sound different, and this piece is all hand-to-hand rolls with the exception of that one thing. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about, this change in texture.
Yeah, and I just found that there was one time at the end where I keep doing the one-handed roll, and then I just go back to this one. which I never fully came up with like a reason why I did that. I just was like, I tried both out and I was like, I never really liked one over the other. So I just kept the continuity of the D flat and A flat, just keeping the one-handed roll just throughout the whole piece.
No, I hear it. I'm not sure what the answer is, because frankly, I thought your one-handed roll version at the beginning was gorgeous. It sounded really good, just sounded different than the other ones. And so I just raise it as something to make sure that you're aware of. The other thing I want to talk about is the kind of extreme dynamic information that's on the page. Like there's a lot of SFFFZs in this piece. I think you could consider couching sforzando within the atmosphere that you're making. So to me, a sforzando is different than a subito fortissimo. That just kind of means one thing, louder. A sforzando is bigger than an accent. It's an accentuated note. It's an important note, more intensity, but it is still in the world that we're living in. And I found, like that first outburst that you had, it just kind of blew me out of the water. Like, not only did an iceberg appear, but we hit it in that moment, right? Like it was a very jarring thing, and I wonder if there's I mean, perhaps you might decide that there is a moment in the piece that should reach that level of intensity, and that's fine. But it seemed like you created this beautiful world for us and then just broke it one measure into it. Do you mind just playing from the beginning and trying something a little more calm on that first sforzando?
Yeah.
Good. I mean, that sounds incredibly loud based on the tremolo that you just made. Like, that is plenty loud. If I was listening to it and had to write down for a dictation test, I would write sforzando or something like that. And so maybe you can just be aware of how little dynamic will actually go a long way in a piece like this. Let's try again, and keep in mind what we were just talking about in the first movement about giving yourself time in and out of rolls. You're in this beautiful room. Take the time to get to the note that you need to hit, and also to make the sound that you want to make. If you jerk to that note, it's going to sound like that.
Yeah.
Good. Now, think about, we have no information really about speed of these grace notes. Maybe the first movement holds as fast as possible, whatever that means. Right now, with the speed that you're using, they feel like 4 independent markers in the universe. Doom, boom, boom, boom. That's great. I'm, again, just trying to make you aware of how your choices read to us as an audience member. Try it again where you try to connect that. It doesn't have to be that much faster, but connect it into la ba da da dum into the next tremolo.
Yeah.
Good. First of all, gorgeous. That was really, really beautiful. That was awesome. When we get to these sforzandos here, you don't actually have to play all 4 of the notes. The sforzando can just be the lowest note and the top note. So you have your tremolo, and then just take a minute, hit that sforzando, and then roll all 4 of them.
Yeah.
Good, but take your time. It's okay if there's a little break in that tremolo.
I want to see you actually, can we take too much time? Can we go too far with it? Yeah. There's so many moments in a piece like this where we have to, when we have to make choices to prioritize certain things and stop prioritizing other things, right? And I think that there's so much freedom in a moment like this for you to do that. I want to see you, we're prioritizing a milky, smooth roll here, and now we're prioritizing sforzando, and now nothing else matters. The only thing that matters is the color with which I come in with the next rolled note, right? So let's just make that of the utmost priority, and the space between it, we'll worry about that later. Yeah, one more time. Great, so then if we're thinking about that sforzando, how do we feel like if we're, for a moment, we're prioritizing that, like how did that color feel in the context of profound?
It feels very kind of bright and like, feels like, for me, I always thought of it as like the first like moment that's supposed to like bring the audience in.
That's so true, but I think use what Ian was saying in the sense that like, in the context of this, that's fortissimo, right? Yeah, 7 Fs. You really learn this actually when you start like recording and making albums and like having to like record under a microphone because you do certain things and then the engineer comes on the mic and it's just like, so we want to get like this really amazing color on those quadruple P rolled marimba notes. When you do those sforzandos, that's blowing my mic out of the water. So like you actually like have to tone things way down even more when you're under a microphone. And then when you're in a concert hall, it's somewhere in between that and your practice room, right? Yeah.
That's great. Really, a little goes a long way, and I do think that recording yourself will help you figure out where that line is. I'll also say that the experiment of leaving extra time was interesting. That was probably too much time, but that was closer to the right amount of time than what you were doing before.
It wasn't way too much time.
Right.
No,
It was-
right.
Yeah.
We could talk about this piece all day.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.